Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dandadan Season 1, Episode 9. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up where the last episode left off. Obviously, Ira is doing her thing. Poor, Ken is still butt naked the entire time trying to find clothes. So he's searching through all the classrooms like, where's some clothes? Where's my clothes? Where are my clothes? Trying to find anything. I love that the entire episode he is butt naked, cheeks out. But also, Ira's doing her thing. I think it's kind of an interesting, we learned so many interesting things between the differences between Acrobatic Silky versus Turbo Granny. And I'm curious, is it also an element of because of who they are respectively? Once again, Turbo Granny kind of made it seem like, yo, I was like top at the top when it comes to like spirits and stuff. Acrobatic Silky was at the bottom. So does that kind of play into like their current dispositions, whether it's Ken's circumstances with Turbo Granny or Ira's circumstances with Acrobatic Silky, where it's like, maybe it's also because like their human situations they can't bring out. I mean, we know Ken cannot bring out all of Turbo Granny's full power. Well, probably until he trains up more, because it's like it takes too much of a toll on his body. So maybe it's just a thing of, even though like Acrobatic Silky is weaker than Turbo Granny, maybe Ira's just not. I mean, obviously, she's just transformed, doesn't have control enough on the power to fully bring it all out. Or maybe it's like the gap in power for what Silky can do versus like Ira just being a regular human. Maybe that gap is small enough that she doesn't have like the massive gap between like how Ken and Turbo Granny, there's a massive gap there, power, learning to control all that power and being able to access all that power. I hope I'm able to kind of properly explain what I'm trying to say there. But either way, my point was like, right, Acrobatic Silky is very acrobatic and can move and has good reflexes and can dodge attacks, especially from Punchy Dude. But the problem is she's not powerful. So that's kind of where things kind of fall apart there. Like, she can land blows, but it's not enough to knock out the enemy, because they've got multiple enemies to worry about. They've got the 3 aliens who are able to suppress transformations, plus they got the Punchy Dude. That ends up being a massive issue where it's like, despite Ken's attempts to try and transform, and once again, they can shut down the transformation with their, what's it called, the Awesome Zone, where they can basically, all 3 of those aliens can lock you in place and strip you of your powers. And it's like, unfortunately, they can't enter, like they have to stay on the outside and trap you, which it feels almost like that's supposed to be an interesting, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it. I think it's an interesting parallel when you think about what Seiko's situation can be, where like with her nails and those like circles that she draws along with the nails kind of trapping you in a certain zone, and that becomes like the boundary. It almost feels like that to some extent. I don't know if there's any parallel that can be drawn there, but I think it's kind of a neat like power thing to kind of compare between the two. But that's why they have Punchy Dude. Punchy Dude can get inside there and punch the hell out of a person they're trying to attack. But luckily, Momo shows up in time and is able to help them out. So it's like, right, she ends up freeing Ken enough that he's able to full throttle the guy and smash him into a wall and knock him out. So now they only have to worry about the 3 aliens, but if she's able to keep them at bay, then it allows these 2 to transform and do their thing. And I thought it was so interesting, because it took me a second later on when, like, all right, they're both transformed, and she's up there being like, oh, I can't believe you're over there making out with that bitch or whatever. And then they're both transformed, Ira and Ken, and they try to go after the aliens. But at one point, she was like, right, I can't believe you saved me, but I won't let you take Ken away from me. And in that moment, I at the time was like, oh, did Momo get distracted because of the whole like, oh my God, I'm going to take Ken, and she kind of got flustered. I thought that's what that was until she says like, no, you can't say that name. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize it. Right, she called Ken by his real name, because I was like, right, he's not Okurun, like, because obviously Ira doesn't know not to call him by his government name, his full name, around Momo. Because it was, like I said, it wasn't until Momo mentioned it I was like, oh, that's what that was. Because Ken's full name got said, and she like has that reaction. You know, once again, it's that little thing of like, it's been so long since that came up that it lets you slips your mind. I mean, she calls him Okurun for a reason, but still, like the last time we've seen that, like, right, what it does to her in the middle of things was episode 3 when they were like Ken was running to the bathroom and Seiko and Momo were chasing after him, and then Ken's name came up and she kind of paused in midair and was like, and kind of fluttered and then like kind of fell behind. But it was like, yeah, it was just them bringing that back. So they also proceeded to take Punching Guy and like basically use, one of them used its penis to enhance him, interestingly enough. I was like, okay, so that I guess that tool has multiple purposes. So that was interesting. And now I love that we tie in, because I was like, oh, that whole like Mantis situation last episode, I was like, are we not going to pay that off? It's like, oh no, we do in the form of this guy, because he's like a lot faster and stuff like that. And obviously Ira can't keep up with his blows. I mean, even that whole like uppercut situation, I was like, Jesus Christ. But Ken is fast enough to see his movements, so it's a combination of cool. I'll make the movements while Ira's the one that attacks. It's like cool. I might not be that powerful, but if I keep hitting your weak spots over and over again, that damage is going to accumulate. So I was like, I love like this three. I mean, this is their first time fighting like as a 3-person team, so obviously it's going to take a lot, because obviously they're in a very complicated, it's not like a regular 3-person versus 4 battle, because it's like, well, it's an odd situation, because it's like, well, you have to hold back those aliens so that these two can transform, but like Ira can't see this thing's movements on her own, but Ken can't. So it's a whole thing. Like there's so many asterisks to this fight, which makes it so dope, because it is very like the advantage in this fight constantly swings back and forth in this pendulum. It's not a very clear cut down the middle. Like it keeps switching on who's winning, and I think that makes it so intriguing, because you're like, how the hell is this going to play out? I mean, you're like, right, these are our heroes. Of course, they're going to end up victorious, but the question is how, and you're going to definitely struggle along the way. So. And then we also had the other monster show up, the one that Momo was dealing with. It wasn't until it popped up again, and I was like, wait, is that supposed to be the Loch Ness Monster? And lo and behold, that's what Ken says. And I was like, right, I didn't even think about that at all last episode, that's what they were going for there. But yeah, I love that this thing is so wild that it ends up killing one of the robots, because it's like it kills like 1 or 2 of them, because it's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not here like because my last episode, I was like, is that a spirit or is that like an alien? They're all aliens, even the punchy guy. I figured he was an alien, but I wasn't sure if the Loch Ness Monster Nessie was a alien or spirit. But it's like, he is an alien, or it's an alien, because they were all hired by that trio from that species. I'm not going to remember the name. It's something with an S. Those creatures, the ones after the bananas and stuff, they hired out 2 extra bits of help, because they're like, well, we need to kill Momo first, because she's the one that's the most dangerous, because at least the other 2 we can block their powers, but she's the one preventing us from blocking their power, so like she needs to be dealt with first. But yeah, the Loch Ness Monster thing shows up, and I love how it shifts the entire like plane of existence by making everything water. The ceiling's water. The obviously the water levels on the ground have risen, and the wall, every surface has become water. I was like, oh, I love that aesthetically. It kind of gets trippy, and it reminds me of, if you've ever played the game Inside. What's that company who the developers, is it Playdead, who did Limbo? Like the game Inside, there's a section where you have to like jump into water that's on the ceiling and stuff. Like it's really trippy. It's so I love stuff like that, especially with water, when you have to jump up to get inside water that's on the ceiling. Like I just think that's like the coolest thing. So like I love this aesthetic, but it puts our heroes at a major disadvantage. Ira is on the ceiling drowning because she got hit by the Mantis dude, because his punches are so much stronger underwater, like the Mantis that was referenced last episode. So now Ken and Momo have to run for their lives, and Ken's like, all right, let me go full throttle, but he can't, because apparently Turbo Granny can't swim. Because my immediate thought was like, oh, is it because he technically doesn't have a surface to run on? Is that what it is, because of the water situation? But which is so interesting too, because I'm like, I know how speedsters deal with being on top of water, like the Flash, for example, can definitely run across water, because you're able to displace everything, because you're moving at such rapid speed, you're able to displace everything between your feet. But I'm like, I actually don't know how the Flash does underwater. Unless, I mean, you probably, like, Ken would probably be okay if he could reach the bottom of the water, but there's technically no bottom to that water. It's bottomless, technically, right? So there's no bottom to it for him to land on, no surface for him to touch on. But I also was wondering, like, well, I don't know if it's not something they've really brought up in this series, but I do know, like, on some supernatural, like, occultist stuff, it is the thing that, like, spirits can't cross bodies of water. Like, I guess, like, water just have maybe, like, I know there's purified water, but I think sometimes, like, bodies of water have, like, almost like this purifying thing where it's just like you, like, a ghost could not cross a shore to get to the other side. Like I said, maybe that ranges from fiction to fiction, so, like, I was wondering if that was something to it, but it's like, no, just apparently just Turbo Granny can't swim. It might be a thing of she just never learned in her life, which is such a neat little thing to be like, oh yeah, that's her weakness, she can't swim. So it's like, okay, cool. So now they have to keep running, but, like, Momo, like was chastising Ken because he was like, right, so you were bothered by the whole me and Ira thing, because she's like, right, you're being on top of her, pinning her down, making. He's like, right, if you, like, at all, he's like, I don't care about anyone else having a misunderstanding about me, but the last thing I ever want in this world is for you to have a misunderstanding to me. So, like, can you please just listen to me and let me explain to you and correct this misunderstanding? And it kind of took her back for a second, because it's like, because she could get very, like, she has a very stubborn personality, much like her grandmother, but it's also, like, she gets extremely stubborn when it comes to Ken, because, I think it's also because, like, she's been hurt before because of her previous ex, so, like, she's still figuring out how she feels about Ken, and now it's just, she hasn't admitted it to not only Ken, but also herself. Like, Ken's beginning to figure out how he feels about her, but she hasn't quite figured it out herself, so. Either way, they had that moment when they were underwater. I'm like, oh, that's kind of awkward. He's naked, and she's, well, yeah, he's completely naked, and they're, like, holding each other while they're underwater, and they come back up, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, and I won't touch you again. But then that gives Ira an idea. Basically, she propels and starts riding Ken, poor choice of words, like a surfboard, basically using her powers to, like, propel him forward. I guess it's like use one hand to, like, stretch him forward, but then quickly use the other hand to kind of drag on. So you're constantly kind of doing almost like a pulley system with his body to propel yourself forward. So you're kind of using him like a surfboard in a lot of ways, or a jet ski. So, and then they managed to, like, shoot. Because this mantis thing, as bad as it is, it's like, oh, underwater I'm 10 times stronger. But the problem is it still has to come up for air every once in a while. So I'm like, I love how shenanigan filled this. It's such a, like, not haphazard, but just, like, it's such a chaotic ass fight that I love it. I love that it's not clean cut. It's so, like, raw and messy. It's not a clear-cut fight, just straight up like, oh, like, because there's always new, like I said, asterisks added to the fight to be like, oh, and there's this complication, and there's this complication, where there's this and that, and, like, I love there's so many elements to this fight. But yeah, this thing had to come up from the surface, so they ended up propelling themselves up to the water to grab Ira. They didn't all had to strip down, Momo and Ira, for the purpose of where our clothes are going to weigh us down underwater, so we need to get rid of, like, air resistance. So create less air resistance so we can, like, go, a lot smoother. So at the same time, the Nessie is still running wild because it's not listening. It's attacking everybody. So one of the other aliens, the banana aliens, being like, yo, like, let's use this cable of mine to combine. So I thought he was just going to combine with Mantis punching dude. Nah, I combined with him and Nessie. So it creates such a complicated thing because now he's able to fire the beams like Nessie. They get it in their idea. So, well, this thing has to recharge. So Iroh's using her acrobatic silky hair to strangle it, but the problem is it's also got the mantis's punch, and since they're underwater, his punches are devastatingly powerful. So it's like, shit, what do we do in this situation? Then it's like, we got to dodge this thing's lasers, but it needs charm to recharge. But now, because all three of them have combined, they're able to cover for each other's weaknesses. So what do we do? And Momo's the one that ultimately ends up figuring out, hey, I have an idea. So she gets, like, during it, she ends up kind of parting the sea. She uses her power to separate the water, and now that this thing's on the surface, its punches aren't as effective. So it's like basically there is a backlash effect because it's not underwater on its arms, and it ends up basically breaking both of its arms because of that. Then it still has its cannon and can stay underwater forever, but that's where Ira comes in, wraps her hair around its neck to block it, and then using the hair and Momo's psychic hands, Ken's able to have an actual surface this time, and he uses his full throttle and kills the thing. And lo and behold, our heroes find themselves back in the regular world, and you're like, oh, cool, that's resolved. But then even I was immediately like, yeah, but Ken's butt naked on top of Momo, and Momo's down to her bra and panties, and I'm like, you're in the middle of the hallway, you're kind of laughing about it. I thought it would just been an awkward thing of, oh my god, you're butt naked leaning against me, but I was like, you're in the middle of the hallway, so... And they're both kind of laughing because it's like, oh, this situation is hilarious, until they find out literally everyone's watching like, holy shit, is that Momo? Oh my god, Ken's like, they're about to get at it in the middle of the hallway. They're running to get away from the awkward situation. Then Ira comes around the corner because she's running too. They're like, why are they all naked? I'm like, how the fuck do you resolve this situation? Next episode, I'm so curious to see what the aftermath of that is. We probably won't see that direct aftermath, but catching a glimpse of it, I think we see our trio bowing in front of Psycho. So I'm thinking like probably like a thing of, yeah, she, as the parental figure. Well, because we don't know what's up with Ira's dad, his situation. Because we also, maybe this might also be our opportunity to finally be like, what the fuck is up with Ken's family situation? Because, well, we've tackled Ira's. We at least know her mom's gone. We know, like, her dad's potentially still alive. That hasn't really come up. But what about Ken? Like, nothing on the parent front has come up on that front. So you're like, maybe this will be an opportunity to bring that up. I have no idea. But, yeah. I guess it's also going to be a thing of Momo's grandma, Psycho, like probably being like, yeah, you probably need to prepare yourself because these attacks are going to just keep coming. Like, it's always, this is just your life now. So you need to be prepared that battles, like, I don't know, not unless she can give them some kind of warning bell or something like that like lets them know like, hey, shit's about to go down. Something of the spiritual or alien variety is finding its way into your life. I'm assuming because since we dealt with aliens this episode, since we kind of go back and forth a little bit, because it's like, right, we dealt with aliens and ghosts, then aliens, then just ghosts for the next 2 episodes. 3 and 4 were just about ghosts. 5 ended up being about, I guess there was nothing directly involved, but like 6 and 7 dealt with ghosts, and now 8 and 9 dealt with aliens. So I'm assuming the next threat's going to be in the form of a ghost or something like that. Seems like we're going to flip back and forth between that. It is interesting that we haven't had the 2 happen at the same time. To be fair, those were 2 separate things happening at once that just happened to collide, just like our main character. So it makes sense, like we haven't had that collision again. But I'm assuming we're going to have that at some point in the show. So we've also got our 4th main character. Who is he, and in what shape or form is he going to be introduced into the story and show? It's going to be fascinating. Once again, that's a rhetorical question. Just me being like, oh, I'm curious to see how that plays out, considering I don't know this story. I'm not asking to know details of who he is and his. I'm like, I'll find out when the show tells me. I'm just putting that out there that there's still one more character we haven't gotten introduced to, and we're down to the last 3 episodes of the season. So you'd assume he's going to pop up maybe partway or maybe even near the end of next episode. I caught a glimpse of the preview, but like I said, I try to avoid those as much as possible because I want to go into the next episode knowing as little as possible. So, but either way, I love this. Just every episode, this is probably the thing I look forward to the most every week, because I'm just like, where the hell is this going? I love that this series can give us an episode like episode 7 where it's just so, like, because they can sprinkle in the seriousness and the romance and the drama elements of things, but also they can also just be like buck wild, silly, and crazy, because this is kind of an out there story. So yeah, I'm loving this show so much, and I'm so excited to see what the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.